They're going to be turning on the microphones.
I felt good for a second.
Before
Testing, testing.
like 15, 16 years.
Test, okay.
Hola, buenos días. I think
Okay,
mine's
yours
off.
is on. Yes, it's on.
Buenas tardes. You supposed to hit it?
Make sure the
No, you don't have to
Oh,
hit
it's
it.
on?
Okay.
Where is this being? Oh shoot, it's being. Sorry, that makes me really.
You're fine. Welcome to the last session of the Bilingual Directors Meeting this year in 2021. We don't bite. You're welcome to come a little bit closer if you'd like. So our thinking when we set this session up, which is a new directors Q&A panel, was specifically for those directors who are first couple years. I remember when I was a brand new director and I came to this meeting, and at the end of the meeting I had more questions than I did when I first showed up. And talking with some of the other directors up here, that was a common experience. So we wanted to provide an opportunity to kind of wrap this up with the new directors to ask your questions of a panel of veteran, experienced directors, as well as ISB and the IRC. So what I'm going to suggest first is that we go down the table and kind of introduce ourselves. And then after that, the topics are up to you. So there should be microphones there and there. You are welcome to ask your questions. If there are no questions, then we'll see you. But we're here to answer. So again, I am Joanne Clyde. I am the Director of Multilingual for the Illinois State Board of Education. I was a bilingual ESL teacher for over 10 years, and then I was a bilingual director in the south suburbs of Chicago. And now I've been at the Board of Education for a year and a half. So.
Hi, my name is Shadia Salim. I am an EL director at North Palos School District 117. I've been in the district for 11 years. I was formerly an Arabic bilingual teacher, and then I went on to being a technology instruction coordinator supporting teachers in data analysis. And now it's my 4th year as a EL director.
Hello, everyone. My name is Margarita Vasquez. I'm the coordinator for second language learners in West Chicago Elementary, District 33. I started my career as a special education teacher, and I've always only served multilingual students. And this is my 3rd year as a coordinator. So welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Viodelda Judkins. I'm the youngest of the group. I've only been in education for 36 years, 14 of which I've spent as a director of basically what I guess you would consider large unit districts. And yeah, I'm here to help. Oh, I'm sorry. I currently work in Champaign Unit 4 School District.
I'm Rachel Anderson. I'm an education specialist with the IRC. Previous to that, I was a bilingual program director for 3 years. I've also been a dual language teacher and a bilingual teacher.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Scott Rasso. I am in my 18th year as an educator, and I always follow that up with, and my 37th year as a learner. Just because you start, that means I'm 43 because you start first grade, right? So, and we were talking about the dots. I have a blue dot. So by title, I'm a new director. This is only my 2nd year as a director, but as many of you may have found or are currently finding, a lot of times director duties get dumped on the most senior teacher or lead teacher perhaps, and I was in that capacity for several years. So I'm very excited to be here among such terrific colleagues.
So it's your turn. Any questions about anything about running a program? Sure.
Brian Lawson, I'm the new curriculum director in Manhattan 114, and we don't have an EL director since we're a very small district and also a low EL population. But I did want to start to infuse some ED for all teachers. We do have kids that are in
Well, I'll put a plug in for the ISB free workshops. So it wouldn't be for your full school, but we do have a contract with the Illinois Resource Center with free workshops for teachers working with English learners that individuals can sign up for. And we also contract with WIDA, and there are online workshops through WIDA. Some of them are even self-paced e-courses that are free, that teachers and EL professionals can sign up for through the contracts that we have with both the IRC and with WIDA.
I think another recommendation, by the way, total participation techniques were the first PD I ever had as a teacher, and I loved them, so I'm so glad that you're doing that with your teachers. Another recommendation would be 7 steps. It's kind of a condensed PSYOP training for teachers. They have a book through Seidlitz Education. So I would look into 7 steps. And then also there's another strategy out there called QSSA. And again, it's a little more condensed strategy to get kids to use more academic language and structured conversations. That's, I think, a really good step for all learners, especially English learners.
And then I'm going to piggyback on that a little bit with, as much as I am a big proponent of PD, because, well, that's all I do all day long, but, you know, that's always a step that we sometimes go to is straight to the strategies, but the mindset piece isn't always there. So I like to sometimes start with districts to really take a look at those WIDA guiding principles of language development. And you could even do like one principle like per staff meeting and just kind of really like think through what does this mean around language learning for multilingual learners, and do we have this belief in our school system?
Any others?
I can't scream that loud, so I'll use the mic. On the first day, we had really good information about our pre-K students and screening them using the pre-IPT, but that left me with some questions that I went back and talked to EL teachers about. So I know that we give the pre-IPT to pre-K students. Do we also have to send, like we do for kindergarten students, consent forms home? And does that mean we are entering their service into our SIS?
Yes, and yes. I also want to point out that you are not just limited to pre-IPT. There's other assessments you can use in place of that. Then we have a list on our website of appropriate screening processes. But yes, you screen with, if you're using pre-IPT, you would screen with pre-IPT, you send your notification letters home, and it does get entered into SIS.
This is also a situation that came up recently in my district. We were looking at how we report as far as the minutes that students receive, because a lot of times pre-K classrooms are only half day. And what my consultant advised us to do was, like there's not a way for SIS to tell the difference between that, so we just kind of split it in half. So a student, if a student received 15 minutes a day, that would be tantamount to that student receiving 30 minutes a day. Okay, and if my consultant's here and I'm saying that incorrectly, please, Asma, help. You can always check with your consultant at your district, okay? And just to make sure that it's all compliant and everything. But yeah, as far as the paperwork, and I think it felt like you were referring to the parent enrollment, like the parent letters and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, those all have to be filed as well.
For pre-K students.
For pre-K.
Okay, that's really helpful.
Yeah, regardless of whether they're your English learners or special education or anything else, no matter what programs you're putting a child in, you need to have the parents know about it, right? So you need to send a notification letter home for anything that you're putting your kids into.
Thank you.
I just have the microphone to give to people.
Back there, Josie.
All I heard your answer that we need to provide notification of English services and assessment in pre-K. Does that count as year 1 of service?
No.
Just wanted to double check with that. Thank you.
No.
I believe, well, go ahead.
Just a little added information on that question. Year 1 starts counting in first grade. So
Yes.
not until first grade.
Continuing with preschool, what is our responsibility for pre-K students who are just receiving itinerant services? Do we still screen them if they're just coming in to have, for instance, speech services once a week for 30 minutes?
If they have a home language survey, we are bound to screen,
Okay.
at least for that.
And then they would be able to refuse or accept services that we would, okay. Okay. Oh, can I ask actually another question?
Go for it.
Totally unrelated. So, I know that in the latest multilingual newsletter, it said that in our local SIS, we shouldn't update the EL tags for 2021 access scores until later when things are, I feel like I'm speaking another language because we're still getting used to the terminology and everything. But how will that affect pre-ID labels when ordering for access?
So you may get pre-ID labels for students who don't need to take the access. You don't give them the access.
Okay.
It's a label.
Okay. So there won't be any problems caused. We'll just get extra labels.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
Joanne, was Barry Pedersen's
Yeah.
presentation recorded
Uh,
today?
yeah.
Okay, so Mr. Pedersen over here just gave a presentation on access, and it will be uploaded to the Crowd Compass site. I've never plugged Barry before. This is really cool. But he gave a pretty succinct description of that exact situation.
Regarding the placement letters, does it matter?
Oh, she was doing good.
She was loud.
So regarding the placement letters, does it matter if they are signed or not? Like, is it 100% necessary that they are signed and returned?
I guess I could take that one.
Go for it.
We send the letters home, and we ask that parents send them back signed. If you don't get the letters back signed, you want to place a copy in your student record, and you want to note that it was sent home and not returned. But you
Right.
make every effort towards getting that returned letter.
You can also, on your notification letters, you can state that, you know, if you do not want your child, please contact us. And then that's kind of like a passive acceptance of the placement.
If you send them home and then I always found that after like 3 attempts and I still wasn't getting one back, I tried to hang on to it until parent-teacher conference time and could then really go through exactly even if they had questions around what that service was like, if that was maybe an issue there.
One thing we also do is I'll always make 2 copies of the parent notice of enrollment form, and I'll put one in their folder and send one home so that once we get the signature, we can swap them out. And if we don't, we still have a record of the copy in their folder.
Thank you. And I have another question. I'll stand. Related to the pre-IPT, so what I'm finding or what I'm hearing from the teachers who are actually giving the assessments is that there are kids who are untestable, meaning they are unverbal, but then they don't have an IEP. How do you go about doing the rationale for part-time if they haven't even spoken to the child at all?
We've had several of those kids, and teachers have, of course, you have to make every effort to give the assessment, but I think at some point you qualify the kid as, is it low English speaking, moderate English speaking, high English speaking, you know, and obviously if you're frustrating the kid, you don't want, you just want to stop and kind of cut your losses, and we've qualified kids just based on that they're not able to respond.
Some of the things we've done in pre-K is even do home visits and do the assessment there.
Yeah.
So the student is comfortable in their own environment. And we can also talk to the parent and see, is this normal or should we try again? Or else we also go into the classroom and do it there as it's able to do. And then we wait a little longer just to see how comfortable the student gets.
In our district, probably because we have the personnel to be able to do this, our classroom teachers actually administer the exams. The kids are more comfortable with them, and we find we get better results. Because non-English speakers might also give you that same no response.
Thank you. And there's always a concern, well, what if they're not actually ELs and they're just not talking?
Right.
And that hesitancy. Well, one of the things that is built into code is that they need to be rescreened again when they enter kindergarten. So by that time, you know, they will have become acclimated to school, and there's many kids that end up screening out in kindergarten.
I mean, even to Maggie's point about the home visits would tell you a lot about the family situation and language background too.
Ready for, ready for another one?
Sure.
I have two, actually. The first one is, what do you do if you notice inconsistencies when you have new students that enroll in your district and you look them up at the state level, and it says they are EL no, but when you look at the screener scores, it would indicate that they would have qualified? Do you rescreen? How do you, there's been a couple that I've noticed this year like that.
So the first thing is, are there access scores? So if you have a child that comes in and you see screener scores that indicate that they were an English learner, there should also be access scores. And the access scores could show that they were English proficient. If not, it gets a little trickier. You can always contact your principal consultant, and we can look through the record to see what other information we have. But we also encourage you to reach out to the previous school that transferred in and see what information you can get from them as well.
And if the child is old enough, you can look for additional state tests to see if they passed those, because that's one way to not provide services to a student because they are proficient in the other state IAR or PSAT, depending on the grade level.
So how would you document that?
There's actually a code, so when you go into your student information system and you're updating the screener information, one of those codes is for other state tests.
Great, thank you. Sure.
I have a follow-up question to that. What if we have a student who is new to the district, does have access scores, but the home language screener in the new district, in our district, says no for no language spoken at home? And
You go with what's in the student information system.
so would I then ask the parent or the family member, guardian, to refill out a home language survey? If that makes sense.
We
We
go
have.
by what's in SIS.
Okay.
So you could indicate on, I've got my pinch hitters down here. Yeah.
Yes.
Lydia.
We've done that before. You want to answer? Okay, so the original home language survey is a legal document, and if it said yes to one or both questions, and then the parents moved and responded no on the new home language survey, the district should go by the original one.
What I've done in those situations
you.
in the past was print off like that student summary page out of SIS and then put that in like whatever your district folder is too, in case your home language survey didn't match with what was previously entered.
And then we've also requested school districts to scan us that information, but another thing I do is just have a simple conversation with the parent. I'll call them and say, hey, this is the situation, this is what you stated in your previous home language survey, and because this is a legal document and due to consistency and taking access, that we'd have to come in and change it. So those are just some ideas.
Okay, my other question totally led right into that, which is perfect. So this came up a couple of times this year. New students, again, they are EL no, but the parents were insisting on changing the home language survey to English. So to me, knowing that's not going to change anything for that student, right? They're not EL. They did not qualify when they were originally screened. But the parents are adamant. I've had conversations. I have two situations. And they, for whatever reason, they do not want it to say another language at the state level.
Just not changing anything.
So, yeah, no, you can't, they shouldn't be changing it.
We have a lot of questions like that, and parents who are very upset, especially when students are supposed to take access. And we explain that parents have every right to refuse services. But if a child was screened based on the original home language survey and qualified for services, that child will be taking access until the score would allow the child to exit. That's
Right.
it. So parents cannot change their mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But
I
we-
get that. For these two, for whatever reason, these two families, they did not even qualify. So it's not, taking access is not even an issue. And I try to explain that. And so I don't know. I guess can document the conversation, but.
That
so we-
said, yes, we do see those cases where parents would say yes because the child watched Dora the Explorer, right?
Right.
Or because, oh yes, we have seen that.
Yeah.
Or because my husband took Spanish in high school 15 years ago. So we always encourage district to double check the new home language surveys for errors, because if those errors continue for years, then it's becoming very difficult.
And
Change.
we also recommend, like, when they're filling out the home language survey, you know, our sample letter has an explanation right at the top of what the home language survey is going to be used for. I know of districts where it's part of their residency process. And so when they hand them the home language survey, they explain verbally to the parent, the results of the survey will be used to determine whether your child needs to be screened for English proficiency, to make sure that parents are aware ahead of time of what's going on. But districts should not be encouraging parents to change the home language survey. You could get yourselves in trouble with that. And parents shouldn't be changing it either.
But I guess in your situation, if they're not qualifying for services and it's already in like CIS, nobody else besides your district level is really like digging into CIS necessarily. And if you're not getting an error code,
Mhm. Sure.
Good.
Yay, more questions.
One, two, three. We're starting a stack.
Just to follow up with what she was asking about students that have answered yes on the home language survey, but they have refused services and their child is still taking, like you were explaining, they're still taking the test until they reach proficiency. But we have a parent that is just insistent upon that he does not want his child taking that test, and he shouldn't have answered yes on the home language survey. And based on the information, I just wanted to clarify, based on the information that you're sharing, the home language survey cannot be changed, and he has to take the test until he reaches proficiency.
Exactly.
Parents cannot opt out, correct?
No, they cannot opt out, and
Correct,
if they
okay.
have a problem, you can send them to the state and have them talk to us, and we'll tell them the exact same thing, because it's a federal requirement.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. I just wanted to make
Yeah,
sure.
they can
But
opt out
just
of
to-
services.
Yeah.
Right. They can opt out of
They can opt
services.
out of services, but he wanted to opt out of testing altogether.
Right.
Oh, and just to add on to that, like, I completely understand because we've had challenging conversations with parents like that. So we've taken more of a proactive approach where when parents do refuse and we have a sit-down meeting with them or even over the phone, we'll let them know that if you do refuse services, just want to let you know, they still are mandated to take Access yearly. And they're going to continue taking it annually until they show proficiency in English. And I just reiterate that to the parents. We also send out a letter district-wide to our families to let them know that it is a federal requirement and there isn't a choice to opt out. And so just to kind of, again, be proactive from the beginning of the year so that they're continuously reminded that this test is going to come up and their child's going to have to take it whether they refuse or not, and even if they're part-time or full-time, they'll have to take it.
Great, thank you.
I had another question about the home language survey. In our district, the registration paperwork for pre-K, K, and transfer students includes the home language survey. For pre-K students, they sometimes say yes, yes, no, no, however it goes, and we screen them. Then in kindergarten, we also include that in that, but there's inconsistencies with students. Sometimes they answer differently, and I think the parents kind of, know that we're going to screen again. Can we use the pre-K? Is that the original
home
one?
language survey is the one that counts.
Okay. And then one other question about transfer students into our school district. When I look in SIS and I see a student was in like CPS, we don't always get the records in a timely manner. So it does show that they took the screener, but then on the page, it says EL no. Right? So am I going to assume, because if they haven't released that student to us in SIS, I can't see those records or those test scores. Can I assume that that child took the screener, but then is proficient? That's what I don't. No, because you know how it says EL placement, or so
Right.
no. So what? If I don't get the records and I can't talk to anyone, how can would rescreen?
Call us.
Call you, and you guys can dig. So
We can
principal
dig.
consultants can dig for our CPS
Yes.
students or other ones where we don't have records. Awesome.
We can dig.
Great, thank you.
And they do some great digging.
I think if you rescreen, you're running the risk of duplicating the student, and I don't know, that would be a headache for somebody. Right, exactly.
And in some cases, though, rescreening is useful. So sometimes there's cases, and I saw when I was a director, where a student moved back out of the country or they moved to a non-WIDA state, and they were gone for a couple of years, but they're in the system as being an English learner. Well, they come back, you know that their screener scores and their access scores are outdated, but you need to make a program placement. So in that case, rescreening would be an appropriate thing to do.
I also always erred on the conversation with the parent side too, to say what type of, can you articulate what type of program your kid was in? And if they tell you they were in a bilingual program, chances are that may have been an error, and you might want to then for sure dig.
And if they're entering kindergarten, it's a moot point because you have to screen.
Right, again.
Okay, one more home language survey question for me, sorry. We've had the reverse, where at the state level it's English, English, and then they register with us and they fill it out differently. They indicate another language is spoken at home.
You have to screen.
Screen them.
Then you start the process.
But
Okay.
before you do that, I would check with the parents.
Right, we do, we
You know,
always do that.
Sometimes you have a new step parent that speaks Spanish,
Yes.
right? Does that require screening? Right?
Yeah.
That's something to have a conversation with the parents about
Okay.
before you do the screening.
I just want to confirm that it can be changed the reverse way. so.
Yeah, it's the parent intention there sometimes too, of did they mark that because you have a dual language program they want to put their kid into? So there's a lot of sometimes reasons behind that.
Yeah, and sometimes we've had parents who were hesitant to put a different language on the home language survey at first, and then they learn more about our programs and more about the supports that they can receive. And then they just call and have a conversation with us, and through that conversation, we find out that they are speaking another language at home, and we would screen.
I think part of the whole just giving more information to the community is talking about the programs you have in your district and what that means and how to fill out some of the forms. So then when it comes to registration, you don't have to repeat yourself a million times. But really having other staff there that also know your program to communicate with the parents is very useful.
So related to that question, in the middle school, so first of all, my district, they are new to online registration, and I'm thinking that a lot of the errors are due to that. But we have middle school transfer students who are listed as yes, yes on home language survey, but then no specific language is named. And then when you go into SIS to look up the score history, they've never taken access testing. They're not listed as an EL. Would you code that as like a mistake or an error, or would you still screen those students?
Investigate further.
Investigate further. So go through your scenario one more time for me, please.
So home language survey, and these are like 6th through 8th graders. Home
Okay.
language survey says yes, yes,
Okay.
language spoken at home, Spanish, language that student speaks, blank. And then the history shows that there's no history of access testing,
Okay.
no screeners or anything like that.
So that's investigate more, but there's also, Viodelda mentioned it earlier. So in Part 228, there are exemptions. When do you not need to screen? One of those is looking at the student's performance on state tests. If they're meeting or exceeding on state tests, then you don't need to screen those students for English proficiency. So there may be exemptions to screening for some of your students, but definitely look into it a little farther. And when in doubt, call your principal consultants.
Gotcha.
Yep. Hold on, Beth.
Beth doesn't have a lot of voice.
That's all.
I was just going to say that exemption where you don't have to screen is particularly applicable to those middle school students, because it would be only for students who are at the age where they would be taking the state test, so that's 3rd grade up, and who have never been identified as English learners and in previous schools, and have never been in a program for English learners. So it sounds like that's what you had. Yeah.
I would also just double check that your online registration polls are syncing correctly, if that's happening multiple times, because I know that was a big deal when the district I was in switched over to online registration, and we were just erring on the side of like still giving a home language survey on paper because it just wasn't trusting all the systems.
One of the things we also did was make sure that they couldn't move on the online registration until everything was clicked on. So they couldn't advance or finish until there were no blanks.
So in the theme of the home language surveys, we have a couple of situations in our district where the family is clear, the parents are clearly second language learners, English learners, or English is their second language, but they mark no. And since we have registration in a central location in our district, sometimes we don't discover that until a teacher says, oh, this parent is, not a native English speaker, but the home language survey says no. Do we override the home language survey, or do we honor what parents say, even if we maybe suspect that there is another language in the home?
You need to honor what the parents say.
Okay,
for
that's
that
what we've been
original
doing. I just
home
wanted to
language
double
survey.
check that.
But that's a case also for time for communication and conversation with the parents.
Right. Okay, thank you.
And just to continue to monitor that student, if they do need additional support, understanding that it could be linguistically related, but it might not be. And it might not be an issue either, so.
So for the home language survey, if we do have problems where parents come back saying something like, oh, we marked it because we watched Dora. I haven't had that specific example, but I have had families come and say, oh, we marked Spanish because, I learned it and I'm trying to teach my child, but, she watches something on her iPad every once in a while, are we allowed to change it in those situations?
Call your principal consultant.
Okay. Okay. And then for preschool again, when they're in preschool, they're screened with the pre-IPT, and then they get rescreened in kindergarten. How do we record in our student systems, or how does it get uploaded into the state SIS that they're no longer an EL?
So when you enter the screener score for model, there should be a LEP or EL determination. You can see how long I've been in it. I went to the old term. EL determination button based off that screener, yes or no.
Okay, so maybe, we're having some issues with that with specific students, but maybe I just have to look more carefully into those students' things that something's checked.
Yeah, and if things aren't connecting between your system and SIS, our SIS department is really good about answering questions and helping make sure that things are supposed to be the way they're supposed to be.
Okay.
And just to preemptively answer this question, you may not change the language of the home language survey. Those two questions have to be exactly as written.
Hello, can you guys hear me? Okay. So for the home language survey, okay, a couple of questions. So one, gosh, now I'm blanking out. Sorry, I'm like in the spotlight, now I'm nervous. So first of all, my school does it online, and after going to the first day of the just the new directors, I thought that we needed to add more. So I just want to get this clarification from you guys. So currently at our school, the home language survey that's in registration says, please specify the student's primary language and what primary language is used daily in the student's household. I said that that wasn't good enough and that it should be what is on the IBSB website. Okay, so yes, because I got pushback when I emailed about that yesterday.
No, if you want to email ISB and get a response from the principal consultant.
Okay. That's what
it'll be official.
Okay, perfect. And then the other question I had was, if I do not have the original home language survey, it is okay to go to SIS and print off that one and then put that in the student files?
So the copy of the original home language survey is not in SIS, but what is in SIS is a determination that the schools have indicated in their records that the answers were yes, yes, or yes, no. That is what is in SIS.
Okay.
So you want to try to get the whole original home language survey from the sending school. If you can't, you have your own home language survey, because it doesn't matter if you have the original one or not. They have to fill it out when they move to a new district.
Okay.
So you can include the SIS information with that as a way of documenting.
Okay, thank you.
I would also show them the home language survey that's on ISB, and then also the language that's in Article 14C, so that they see that this is actually written in law.
Yeah, the wording of those questions is written out in law and code, so that can help too. But if they're still not listening, let your principal consultant know. We can send you an official statement.
We've all asked for official statements from consultants from time to time.
And we also have online registration, so we do print out the home language survey that's filled out on the online registration within district.
Because it has to have a parent signature and a date as well on the actual home language survey.
Yes.
Yeah, we have the DocuSign.
But it has to be there rather than at the end of the registration process.
Yes.
Correct.
Well, you can have the DocuSign for each section that you need it to, where you need a signature.
Or you could be over paranoid like I was and still have them fill out a paperwork anyways. I was afraid of that monitoring.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, am I free to move on? I have a different topic.
Sure.
Language survey. Okay, just want to make sure. When we are completing our monthly files, we've always had every year a conversation about on our file we have level of service and if they're full-time, part-time. So we know that full-time, part-time is what they qualify for in relationship to access. And then, but the periods per week that they're receiving might not always match that, depending on, caseloads and student needs and such. So do both of those pieces of information get uploaded, like, to SIS, or if there are discrepancies between those two, if they qualify for, if they're full-time but are getting, part-time service, are there issues with that?
Okay, let's get Lydia a mic.
Okay.
The short answer is yes. When you're reporting for every student individually, you're going to let us know whether it's TBE full-time, TBE part-time, or TPI. And then you're also going to indicate the level of services.
So we have just released bilingual service plans, and this is when we are looking for that information. If a student is in full-time TBE and has low class periods per week, that's a red flag for us, because based on regulations, the student in full-time should have all core subjects taught in that student's home language. So you cannot do it and provide low class periods per week. So there should be a consistency. With part-time, there is more wiggle room because it may be low, it may be more, but with full-time, we basically expect to see high.
Doesn't have full-time, part-time.
Right.
Right, correct.
So for schools with low numbers, we often find that there are not enough students of the same language background for a TBE program. That's where the difference is. If you don't have 20 or more students of the same language background, you don't have a TBE option. You only have TPI. It does not. Only the amount of service that you're providing. That's when you're designating low, medium, or high service.
But we have the same programming, so you're correct. There isn't a coding for TPI for full-time or part-time.
Right.
You're just coding the level of support within TPI.
Right.
Right.
There's no such thing as full-time, part-time TPI.
Right.
You'd have to do like high, moderate, low.
Right.
Can I just go back to what full-time and part-time mean? Is this on? Can you hear me? Yeah. So full-time means, just as Lydia said, it has nothing to do with class periods, though it's related. But full-time has to do with whether or not the student is receiving instruction in their native language and in English in all subject areas, plus ESL. It's a strange name. It does, full-time doesn't really describe what we're talking about, but it means that you're getting instruction in native language and English in all the core subject areas, plus ESL. And so part-time means that you're getting native instruction, the student is getting native instruction in some of the core subject areas, but not all of them. So it goes back to class periods per week, as Lydia was describing, because it's not possible to do it in a short period of time. But full-time and part-time, just themselves, that description, it doesn't have anything to do with time in the classroom. Yeah. And so that's why TPI doesn't have full-time or part-time. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get this.
Hi. As it relates to full-time and part-time TB, I understand 3.5 is the cutoff point. And I understand there's a questionnaire to potentially families that would prefer part-time versus full-time to guide them through that if necessary. And I've seen in presentations what you're describing, and Lydia, you've answered this to me in email too. Is there somewhere good that like a website I could refer to, Illinois School Code, somewhere where I could quote that language? And if so, where would I find that?
So 23 Illinois School Administrative Code, Part 228.
Okay.
Is the rules.
14C.
And Article 14C is the legislation.
So you would look directly in that there.
Mhm.
All right, thank you.
And we have links to both on our website.
Thank you.
So you guys talked about how academic performance on state testing can be used in place of screener scores, correct?
Mhm.
Can that also be used to exit students, or just to be used for screener scores, or determination between full-time and part-time?
Correct. Just
Okay.
for screener or between full-time, part-time.
Okay.
You cannot exit a student because of their.
It's just strictly on access.
Access score is the only thing that exits a student.
That's what I thought, but I just wanted to confirm.
Thank you for clarifying. Are there any, there's another question here, but I was going to say, are there any questions about, organizing your programs? A lot of the questions have been very compliance oriented.
You scared them this morning, Joanne.
Okay, so I have one question about screeners and then one question about structure.
Okay.
So relating to the preschool screeners, if they screen the students who are entering kindergarten the next school year in April or May, is that fine, or does it have to be officially when the student is a kindergartner?
It's called kindergarten roundup. So
Okay.
That's, yeah.
I'll put that in my repertoire. Kindergarten roundup. So in the spring, it's fine for kindergarten or
Yeah.
preschool students. Okay. And then also, as far as structure, one of the biggest issues that I'm having is that at the middle school level, we do not have any bilingual teachers. So I'm looking to get student teachers, or we have one TA for the entire middle school. Does that count as services if it's a student teacher providing the services or a TA?
So for official services, no, it does not count. It needs to be a properly endorsed and certified teacher. Now, to answer your questions about how would you provide bilingual services, I think our bilingual directors would be able to give you some good advice on that.
Middle school.
Since Viodelda takes all my good bilingual teachers, I'm going to say Viodelda has a perfect answer to that.
I steal bilingual teachers. So my advice to you would be to advertise high and wide to find bilingual endorsed teachers. Maybe even looking within your own school district for a Grow Your Own program. All of those things are, of course, future of the bilingual program that you're building. So while you're doing that, you call your principal consultant and let them know up front that you don't have any staff, but that you are providing. Now, you could possibly have that TA be guided by a teacher within your district to provide tutoring to students within the building so that students aren't without any type of service, but it will not count as service.
Do you have ESL endorsed teachers there?
Yes, we have plenty of ESL, but we have
For bilingual.
We have plenty of ESL endorsed teachers, but we have no one who is delivering bilingual content. And then we have newcomer students. We have about 10 newcomers with only this one TA, and then they're in different grade levels, so the TA is kind of chasing them around, and that's still not even providing adequate services or instruction or anything. And it's not my fault, I just stepped into the role.
Do you?
I was just curious because, as Viodelda had asked about the TA support, if one of your ESL teachers would at least be able to be the kind of monitor of them, per se. The what? Like the person who
Tells them
what to do and who to see, and you have a seasoned ESL teacher that at least knows the language-based strategies and language-based instruction.
Right. No,
They just
that's
can't provide
happening.
it in the native language.
Yeah, it's happening. It's just more so the whole, like, and these are people who would require the full-time bilingual program, and we cannot even provide part-time. So it's just a matter of, like, what do you do? I just let the principal consultant know, and then we just look towards the future. But then what about these students that are just sitting there?
Do you have any staff that are bilingual? Just
Yes, within
staff?
the district, but not at the middle school.
So I wonder if you could market it overall. Oftentimes, even though you have bilingual staff, they may not be bilingually endorsed. So working with HR and figuring a pathway for them as well. Of course, we want them to be wanting to be in the classroom and supporting a native language. But I think oftentimes it's also the stigma that may in the culture in the schools. So, but I would really market to the bilingual staff that you do have already.
Thank you.
I just had two quick questions. Can you just clarify again, the screening, the kindergarten screening can be done in the spring, like April and May? It does not have to be done
For your
like
currently enrolled pre-Kers who are going up to kindergarten.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. What about students that are entering that did not go through the pre-K program? Can they also be screened if they are going through a registration process?
Yes.
In April and May?
We'll screen students. We have summer screenings. We hold summer screenings, which work out really well. We have a huge turnout, and it helps us immensely because then the kids could actually hit the ground running with services straight when they walk into our door. And so we'll hold summer screenings in early June, and then we'll hold 2 in July and 2 in August, and we'll market for and compensate our bilingual teachers to give the screenings in the summer.
We do a similar format as that, but I just was curious if we could even, if they're registering in May, we
roundup
can.
or anything in the spring.
We do, yeah, we do in March and April.
We used to screen the kids right
And that's
there.
okay. That's not too far out. Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying that. And the second question I had was regarding the sample letters that are on the website. Do you recommend that we use those letters verbatim and the verbiage verbatim, or can we take that and capture the verbiage and paraphrase it, or kind of make it to our district? What would you recommend?
So though the sample letters are 100% compliant with all the regulations. There are quite a few districts that just slap their letterhead on the top of it and use them as is. You are also welcome to write your own, but you're going to want to make sure that they meet all of the requirements for the notification letters. So.
Okay, thank you.
Kind of a non-committal answer, but your district can choose how to send the notification letters to them. You're just going to want to make sure that everything that's supposed to be in there is in there, and we provide those sample letters. And our sample letters are already translated for you into quite a few languages.
Yes.
Which helps with that cost.
Okay, thank you.
And a practice that has a past practice of districts that is no longer allowed is attaching a waiver letter so that parents can just mark off and say, no, I don't want the service. They literally have to write a letter saying, I do not want this service. They don't have to tell you why, but they have to write that letter saying they don't want to. You can't just give them a form letter to waive service. Pardon me?
Does that need to be on a separate document, or can it be on like the screener letter where parents write at the bottom, I refuse services for my child? It can be placed on that letter. It doesn't have to be on a separate
They
document.
can write it wherever they, wherever they want to write.
Yeah, the thing is that you as a district should not have a form.
Correct.
Because that
When we
suggests
don't.
that you're encouraging people to refuse services.
Sure, absolutely. We don't. We wanted to clarify whether or not it could be written on our parent notification of the screening results, or if it needs to be on a separate document that is placed in the file.
Just a date and a signature.
Absolutely.
Date and signature.
Date
Yep,
and
we have
signature,
that.
wherever it is.
Absolutely.
Thank you for clarifying.
Mm-hmm.
But just to add on to that, in terms of just parents refusing, we definitely want to encourage parents to opt into the programs. So we've developed a procedure where parents, in the parent notice letter, it does say that they have the right to decline services and a written request will need to be delivered to us. But then we have a follow-up conversation with them. Sometimes it's on the phone, sometimes it's during meetings. We'll encourage either classroom walkthroughs or just an explanation of the programs. We'll go over the data, the academic and language data of their child and what it means and the implications of instruction and the supports that they would need, so that we can lessen parents refusing the services because of the benefits of the services. And then if they do insist on refusing services, we'll have them write a separate letter with a date and just their child's name and their name and sign it, and then we'll add it to their file. But I think we've taken, we've added more steps to refusing services so that it's something that's very serious, it's very formal, it's not just, I want to refuse services. There's a process, right, that they have to go through, absolutely.
In my district, we do have them talk to the ESL teacher and then the principal, and then I do the final conversation.
And one other thing to note is that parents can refuse bilingual services, but then they can still accept the TPI services. So you may want to clarify with parents if they're saying, oh, I just want to refuse it. Well, are you refusing the bilingual part? Because some parents don't want the schools to teach them the native language. They're doing that, right? So you can, communicating with the parents will really help it overall. So that's something to keep in mind also. Oh, we got a question in the back.
So I first have a non-fun technical question based on what you just said. That, so if a family refuses a TBE student refuses EL services but does want TPI services, would we code them differently?
Lydia, Beth? They're not a parent refusal, so would they be coded as TBE or TPI if they've refused the bilingual portion?
Is that when they get
part-time?
Part-time?
It would be part-time TBE.
So they're still kind of towards the 20.
I
though.
believe it's part-time because in the part-time notice, it does say parent request is one of the options.
Yeah.
Yes, it goes to what was discussed earlier, full-time, part-time. This is one of the situations when parents maybe don't want full-time. They want to refuse some components of the program, or they want TPI instead of TBE, and that is accepted. That's not refusal or withdrawal.
Yeah, so
In that
you'd
case,
code
you're-
them as TBE part-time.
Right.
Yeah.
And in that case, your TBE part-time and your TPI program may be then one mix of service.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you said you had a second question?
Oh,
All right,
yeah.
let's get you the mic back.
And this is related to the question which you asked about having bilingual staff. And so the recruitment and retention, and I heard Margarita, you speak on like the culture and climate of the school is also going to impact. That could be a full-time job in itself. What have you as bilingual directors done to engage the whole team, including all departments, in that recruitment and retention and professional development for ELS TBE teachers? What strategies have you found are helpful to build that collective urgency that we all feel?
We have a large number. 60% of our students are EL. So we see it every single day, right? That causes the urgency. Again, we also provide cohort groups, and we partner with universities so that they can come out and make it as feasible as possible, that it's in their building or in the district or somewhere close by. And we've actually run that, and we have a really high percentage of ESL and bilingual endorsed teachers because of that. But I do really believe in the culture and the climate of the district overall to help with that.
I think your current bilingual ESL teachers are the best voice for your district, and if they're not feeling supported and like they're going to push other people away sometimes. And so I've been the person of somebody said, well, my cousin, I think is, give me their phone number, let me call. Because, and as that word spreads more, that your district is a place that's really accepting and really supporting of bilingual teachers, and you're able to send them to professional learning opportunities, that helps your pool grow a little bit too.
Right, and to add on to that, it's having a seat at the table. Like, in terms of retention, you know, are your bilingual teachers part of your professional learning communities? Are they part of your professional development? Are they required to be a representative on ELA committees and social studies committees where they're developing curriculum? And so, you know, having them be representatives there, I think will help also with retention.
But don't put one person on all of those same committees.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, definitely not. And similar to you, we do have a large population of English learners and a large bilingual teacher population as well. So we'll have grade level committee members so that everybody is represented. But then in terms of recruitment, in addition to cohorts, I'll reach out to colleges and ask, you know, do you have your graduating class, and are any of them bilingual? And we'll promote and recruit from those universities and colleges as well. And then local organizations, you know, reaching out to your community, reaching out to your bilingual teachers who are part of that community as well, have family members, and kind of shedding light on, you know, the community, the school community, the culture, and just it being a great place for the diverse population and staff will help with spreading the word and teachers knowing, or staff or graduating students who want to become teachers know about your district and come to apply to it.
Something else we've also done is include student voice right now, and that is a really great way to grow your own. We've had multiple staff come back, and right now they're interviewing because they want to come back in some kind of capacity, whether it's an interpreter or as a TA or as a teacher. There's so much out there for them, and just they come back because they say they want to build the community and make it stronger, and that they really enjoy being part of the community. So I 100% student voice and choice, and really promoting bilingualism within the schools and within the students.
I think one thing that has really worked for me within the districts that I've been in is really supporting teachers, having them feel that they are heard, and being visible as the director, going into classrooms, looking at their teaching, having comments to them about their teaching, and supporting them in the little things that they want to do, making them feel that they're a part of the grant system and what they need for their classroom, that you're interested as their director or as their coordinator in what they're doing with their students.
And you can also play the long game. So in the district I was in prior to coming to the state, we had several parents who had been teachers in their home countries, but for whatever reason, they weren't teaching here. We worked with them, and in one case, we were able to help them become a paraprofessional. And once we had them as a paraprofessional, we could help them get their full bachelor's degree, because in this case, all of her credits didn't transfer. So we were able to help her get her bachelor's degree. Well, now she has a bachelor's degree, and she can continue forward, and we can get her the ELS TBE. And so now she has an ELS TBE, and she was able to teach in our bilingual program for 5 years. And that 5 years gave her an opportunity to get her full Pell. And once she had her full Pell, she actually chose to get it in that magical, mystical unicorn of pre-K with special ed and Arabic bilingual.
Wow.
So like that was a teacher we didn't want to let go at all. So like she's not allowed to leave. But we've had other parents that we've gone through a similar process. Your parents, it is playing the long game, right? You're getting parents in at the paraprofessional level, or even at the volunteer level, to come in and help out at classes. Okay, well, would you like to become a paraprofessional? Let's help you be a para. All right, well, you would be an excellent teacher. Let's help you become a teacher. And you can start growing your own in some of those hard to find languages, is in the communities that your children are coming from.
That's very true. We have a group of new immigrants, Congolese immigrants to the Champaign area. They are speaking French and Lingala. And within that community, we found that they're coming to the United States with bachelor's degrees and master's degrees from the Congo. And when their transcripts get evaluated, they are evaluated at those higher level degrees, and they're able to pass the exams, the English, the target language exams, and then they're able to get their ELS certificates and become teachers within the system. We have 3 teachers who are like that currently, and boy, marvelous in front of the students that are like them, that know their culture, the teachers knowing the students' culture and being able to reach them on that level.
And the Grow Your Own is definitely magical because it does work. And I don't know if a lot of people know about the temporary bilingual license, because when they hear about it, just people that are not in education and they're interested in education, or they're interested in supporting the community and the students, that they are really interested in it and just need support with the steps that they need to take to get it. So I would look into that.
And speaking to that, we also have a few teachers who took a foreign language when they were in high school, when they were in college, and are very proficient in that language, and are teaching in some other area, maybe K-5, middle school, and they see the need for bilingual teachers. They go ahead and take the exam and are surprised that they're able to pass the target language exam for the language that we need. And we have gotten teachers in that way as well. With that short term, because they have those classes, at least 6 classes towards that short term, towards the endorsement, they're able to get the short term endorsement on bilingual education.
So I want to take a second and clarify. So we've got there's 2 pathways. All right, there's an ELS TBE, which is an educator license with stipulations, transitional bilingual education. In order to get the ELS TBE, an individual needs a bachelor's degree and then passes the language test. From there, they have 5 years, and then that license is done. It goes away. It cannot be renewed. The other one is for individuals who have a Pell, and it's a short-term approval. And so they can earn that short-term approval once they have, I believe it's 9 credit hours towards an ESL or bilingual endorsement. And so once they have that short-term approval, I don't remember exactly how many years after that, but then they can start providing ESL bilingual services once they have that approval. No, so there's the ELS TBE is the bachelor's plus language test. That one's 5 years, and then I don't know what the APE means. So APE is a different. So I think
it's a para.
Is APE a para?
I've never heard of it before.
I haven't. It's. I'm not in the licensure department, so I don't have all the answers for licensure. I know which ones count for English learners, which are the ELS, TBE, and then the short-term approval. The APE, I do not know the answer for, but we can look it up for you. So we have 4 more minutes. Are there any more questions?
Sure, just really quickly. Thank you. I was wondering if you had any tips on how to really get EL specialists working with special ed personnel, and if in any of your schools, if you require EL specialists to be at IEP meetings, I'm just curious to know what you have to say about that.
Yes, one of the new practices that we adopted was obviously the interpreter should be there as an interpreter, okay? I am usually there as the coordinator to fill the role of the bilingual specialist. Thank you, Lydia, for explaining that to me a couple of years ago. And then we also invite the ESL, like the case managing ESL teacher or the bilingual teacher of the student. Even though all 3 of us are bilingual and able to interpret, we each have our specific role. And of course that requires some buy-in from your district and you having to sell that to them. Even though I observed that they have no problem throwing out 5 or 6 special education specialists, so that's a battle that you'll have to pick and choose carefully. How do you approach that?
I think having the ESL teacher or specialist of record at the IEP meeting is a requirement of the IEP meeting. If the child is an English learner, then you have to have representation from our department.
But if you're just talking about also just planning and preparation and support for that student, I think the more you can triangulate those services between a gen ed teacher, an EL specialist, and a special education teacher, you just have a pool of resources there that are able to support our student, and everybody's coming at it from a different perspective too. So the more that can become a common practice, the better. I found that including the gen ed teacher helps in that process, because sometimes just 2 types of specialists always meeting together would get some pushback on a larger scale. I'm sorry. I talk with my hands.
Also, I work with the ESL teachers so that they feel competent to be able to serve all students. And we really talk out situations and think about what's your role in this and how can you support, knowing that your role is the EL specialist and how we can work together very collaboratively. So it's never to exclude any students.
Maggie, you make a really good point there, because I have found that, oftentimes teachers who are maybe on those ELS, TBE certifications don't maybe feel strong enough in the education standpoint when they come to the table. But some of that is really empowering them to speak and say, language practices, cultural practices. We need that voice at the table.
Right. And sometimes it's healthy to remind all of your staff that EL-ness doesn't go away when the ESL teacher is not pushing in. Special education-ness doesn't go away when the LBS is not there, right? It is a constant thing that the student is going to always need support for English learner, and they're always going to need IEP supports, whether or not the specialist is in the room at that very minute. And so the better coordination and collaboration you can have between all of your teachers, the better off that child is going to be. So it is 4 o'clock. Whew. Thank you, everybody, for your wonderful questions. I would like to also thank our panelists for their time and expertise sharing with you their knowledge. We couldn't have done it without them. If you have any further questions, you are more than welcome to ask us whenever or email your principal consultants. We are here to help. So thank you so much. Have a great afternoon.